Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. The Classic Guide to Understanding the Opposite Sex. Written by John Gray, summarized by Detailed Book Summaries. Don't forget to subscribe. Chapter 1, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Have you ever looked at your partner and thought, why do they act like they're from another planet? According to John Gray, that's not just a figure of speech. It's closer to the truth than we might think. In this compelling metaphor that launches the book, Gray imagines that men and women originally came from entirely different planets, Mars and Venus. These two civilizations, though vastly different in customs, language, and emotional expression, were brought together by the mysterious power of love. Eventually, the Martians and Venusians left their home worlds and chose to settle on Earth. At first, everything was beautiful. They cherished their differences, approached each other with fascination and care, and created harmony. But over time, they forgot they were from different worlds, and as memory faded, so did understanding. Miscommunication crept in, and with it came conflict, confusion, and hurt. At the heart of this idea is a simple truth. Men and women are fundamentally different. Not better or worse, just different. And yet, much of the frustration in relationships stems from forgetting or ignoring that essential difference. When we assume our partner should think, feel, or react the way we do, we're setting ourselves up for disappointment. Gray illustrates this by highlighting how easily conflict can erupt, even in loving relationships. You might find yourself spiraling into an argument over something trivial, like how the dishwasher was loaded, only to realize that what's really hurting is not the event itself, but how misunderstood you feel. Or maybe you've opened up about a rough day, hoping for comfort, only to receive a barrage of solutions instead. While your partner may think they're being helpful, what you needed was empathy, not advice. This disconnect arises because men and women don't just behave differently. They process the world through completely different emotional and cognitive filters. Men, the Martians, are driven by achievement, autonomy, and problem solving. They feel validated when they can provide a solution, fix a problem, or offer help. Their identity is tightly linked to competence and the desire to be useful. When a man sees his partner struggling, his instinct is to rescue, to analyze the problem and offer a fix. Women, the Venusians, on the other hand, are motivated by connection, empathy, and nurturing. For them, communication isn't always about solving something. It's often about being seen, heard, and emotionally supported. When a woman shares her troubles, it's rarely a request for action. It's an invitation into her emotional world. She seeks presence, not prescriptions. But when she receives a quick fix instead of deep listening, she may feel dismissed or unloved, while her partner is confused, wondering why his efforts weren't appreciated. It's as if one person is speaking French and the other German. Both are talking, but no real connection is being made. This is where Gray's metaphor of different planets becomes so useful. It helps couples zoom out from frustration and see things with a wider lens. When you imagine your partner as coming from a different world entirely, their behavior stops feeling personal and starts feeling cultural. That slight pause where you say to yourself, oh, he's just being Martian, or she's doing what Venusians do, creates the space for empathy. For example, when a man suddenly becomes withdrawn or quiet, his partner might worry that something's wrong, that he's upset, or that she did something to drive him away. But in Martian terms, he's simply retreating into his cave, a space where he can process, decompress, and regain his equilibrium. It's not a rejection. It's a coping mechanism. Understanding this can prevent unnecessary hurt and anxiety. Similarly, when a woman talks about something repeatedly or wants to express how she feels over and over, it might seem to a man like she's stuck or dwelling on the past. But for a Venusian, sharing emotions aloud is how she processes them and finds relief. It's how she reconnects with herself and with her partner. Recognizing this not only reduces tension but invites compassion. In the early stages of a relationship, these differences seem endearing. You're intoxicated by love, curiosity, and novelty. You're more tolerant, more forgiving, and more willing to meet each other halfway. But as the initial high of romance fades, those same differences that once felt charming can become a source of irritation. The mystery begins to wear thin. What was cute becomes inconvenient. The honeymoon ends and reality sets in. Often, it's not that your partner has changed. It's that you've stopped interpreting their behavior through a lens of understanding. You've stopped remembering that you're dealing with someone from another world. To restore harmony, Gray says both men and women need to relearn each other's emotional language. For men, this means recognizing that when a woman opens up, she doesn't need a solution. She needs solidarity. Listening without interrupting, without fixing, and without judgment is one of the most powerful acts of love a man can offer. It's not passive, it's deeply active and affirming. For women, it means understanding that men aren't always wired for verbal emotional processing. Sometimes their silence isn't distance, it's recalibration. When a man retreats, it doesn't mean he's pulling away from love. He's simply gathering himself, giving him space without panic and trusting that he will return stronger and more connected is a key to building emotional security. Ultimately, the goal isn't to change your partner, it's to understand them, to ask not, why are they like this? But what does this mean in their world? That shift from judgment to curiosity, from expectation to empathy, can be the turning point in any relationship. As you reflect on these ideas, consider this. When conflict arises, are you expecting your partner to think or feel the way you do? Can you recall moments when you interpreted their behavior through your own emotional lens and got it wrong? And most importantly, are you listening to understand or listening to solve? In summary, Gray offers some crucial takeaways. First, remember the metaphor. Your partner isn't wrong, they're just different. Second, stop taking things personally. Most behavior that frustrates you isn't malicious. It's just unfamiliar. Third, adjust your expectations. Instead of wishing your partner were more like you, get curious about how they aren't. Fourth, practice empathy. Ask yourself, how might this make sense from their perspective? And finally, learn to make space for both Martian and Venusian needs. Solitude and connection can coexist when you lead with compassion. So, what would happen if you stopped trying to fix your partner and instead started trying to understand them? What if you truly believed that they weren't trying to upset you, they were just wired differently? That's where real love lives, in the space between differences, bridged not by criticism, but by curiosity. Chapter 2, Mr. Fix-It and the Home Improvement Committee. Have you ever opened up to your partner about something that was bothering you, just to get it off your chest, only to be handed a list of suggestions about what you should have done? Or maybe you've tried to help your partner by offering logical, well-meaning advice, only to be met with frustration or tears. If so, you've encountered one of the most common relationship pitfalls that John Gray explores: the clash between Mr. Fix-It and the Home Improvement Committee. This chapter dives into one of the most universal misunderstandings between men and women: the moment when a man thinks he's being helpful by solving a problem, while a woman feels emotionally dismissed. Or when a woman tries to help by suggesting a better way to do things, and the man feels criticized or inadequate. It's not a lack of love that causes the disconnect. It's a lack of translation. Imagine a typical scene. A woman comes home from work visibly stressed. She begins talking about her day, the coworker who interrupted her in a meeting, the endless to-do list, the confusing email from her boss. As she talks, the man listens, but not in the way she expects. Rather than simply being present with her emotions, his mind begins scanning for problems to solve. He thinks he's being useful, caring, and supportive. So he chimes in with what he believes are practical solutions. Why don't you just tell your boss how you feel? Or, you should start saying no to those extra tasks. From his perspective, he's helping. He's doing what any good Martian would do, offering tools, answers, fixes. But from her perspective, this logic feels like a dismissal. What she wanted wasn't a solution, it was solidarity. She needed someone to sit with her in the emotion, not stand above it with a blueprint. So instead of feeling supported, she feels misunderstood. Her partner, now confused by her reaction, may respond with frustration. What do you mean I don't listen? I just gave you 5 great suggestions. This is the heart of the problem. Men often show love by doing. When a woman shares a struggle, they instinctively reach for their metaphorical toolbox, assuming that fixing the issue is the best way to show care. But what women often want instead is presence, emotional connection, a nod, a kind word, or even a simple, "That sounds really tough." For many women, the act of sharing is not about seeking answers. It's about being seen. The emotional weight she carries isn't something she wants disassembled. She just wants someone to help her hold it for a while. In practical terms, what this means is that men can show profound love by resisting the urge to fix. Instead, they can listen without interruption, offer validation instead of advice, and ask, "Do you want me to just listen? Or would it help if I offered some ideas?" This simple shift can transform the emotional climate of a conversation. For many men, it goes against instinct, but learning to listen in this way can be one of the most meaningful gifts they give. But the misunderstanding doesn't only go one way. Women, too, have their version of this well-intentioned misstep. In the Venusian world, love is often expressed through nurturing, improving, and guiding. It's second nature for women to want to help the people they care about grow, succeed, and avoid mistakes. This is the home improvement committee at work, a loving, if sometimes uninvited, force for betterment. But when women offer unsolicited advice or gentle corrections to men, it doesn't always land the way they intend. In fact, to a Martian, it often feels like criticism, because men, as Gray emphasizes, deeply value competence and trust. When a woman says, "Why don't you call the plumber instead of fixing it yourself?" or "You always wait until the last minute," she may think she's being helpful. But to him, it may feel like an accusation. "You're not doing it right. I don't trust you to handle this." This touches on a fundamental emotional need for men, the need to feel trusted, appreciated, and capable. When that need is threatened, men often respond by withdrawing or becoming defensive. They feel disrespected not because their partner doesn't love them, but because they feel that love is being expressed in a way that doesn't align with how they receive it. Gray's message to women is gentle and clear. Unless he asks for advice, don't offer it. Trust him to handle it his way, even if it takes longer, even if it seems less efficient. Let him be the hero of his own journey. And when he does succeed, affirm him. Celebrate him. This doesn't mean ignoring your own needs or walking on eggshells. It means offering love in a way that honors his emotional wiring. Ultimately, the goal is mutual respect and emotional fluency. It's learning to recognize that love isn't about treating your partner the way you would want to be treated. It's about learning how they need to be loved. For men, that may mean pausing the fix-it reflex and just being present. For women, that may mean dialing back the impulse to offer improvement, and instead trusting more, even in silence. As you reflect on this chapter, consider a few key questions. When your partner shares something, do you automatically try to help? Or do you ask what they actually need? How do you feel when advice is given without being asked for? And are there moments where your good intentions might actually be creating distance instead of closeness? From these insights, several practical takeaways emerge. For men, resist the instinct to fix. Ask first. Listen more. For women, hold back unsolicited advice unless it's requested. Trust that your partner is capable. Both partners should be mindful of the gap between intention and impact. Just because something is said with love doesn't mean it will be felt that way. And finally, redefine what help means. Sometimes the most healing thing you can offer is your quiet, undivided presence. The core message of Chapter 2 is clear. Love isn't always logical. It's emotional translation. It's about learning to speak your partner's language, not your own. Because when women feel heard, they soften. And when men feel trusted, they rise. Real connection doesn't come from fixing or improving each other. It comes from understanding, acceptance, and the simple act of being present in the emotional moment. Chapter 3: Men go to their caves and women talk. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by something and found comfort in talking it through? Going over every angle, every feeling, every little detail, only to watch your partner grow distant, go silent, or even leave the room. Or maybe you've been on the opposite side. Burdened with stress, desperately needing peace and quiet, only to be met with a flood of questions like, "What's wrong?" Or "Why won't you talk to me?" If either scenario sounds familiar, you've stood at one of the most emotionally charged crossroads in relationships, the intersection between the cave and the conversation. This chapter unpacks one of the most misunderstood dynamics between men and women, how they cope with stress in fundamentally different ways. The misinterpretations that arise from these differences can easily be mistaken for rejection or withdrawal. But underneath the surface, what's really happening is not emotional disconnection. It's coping. It's two people trying to find peace, each in their own way. Let's begin with the Martian cave. When a man is stressed, whether it's due to a problem at work, a personal disappointment, or simply the weight of daily life, his instinct is to retreat. He doesn't want to talk about it, not yet. Instead, he needs silence, space, solitude. His version of the cave might involve zoning out in front of the TV, tinkering with a hobby, scrolling on his phone, watching a game, or sitting in complete stillness. Whatever the activity, the purpose is the same: to process his thoughts internally. To a Martian, problems are like knots that must be untangled in silence. He withdraws not because he's angry or uninterested, but because it's the only way he knows how to regain control, clarity, and confidence. In his world, going into the cave is an act of emotional self-preservation. And when he's ready, when he's solved the issue or at least found a sense of internal peace, he'll emerge ready to engage again. But from the outside, especially from a Venusian perspective, that withdrawal can feel incredibly painful. Women tend to cope with stress in the opposite way, by talking. When something is weighing heavily on a woman's heart, her first instinct is to connect. She talks through her worries, not necessarily to find answers, but to find understanding. Through sharing her emotions aloud, she begins to make sense of them. She talks to process, to bond, to release. So when her partner suddenly goes quiet, she may interpret that silence as rejection. She might wonder if she did something wrong or if he's angry with her. She may feel shut out, unseen, or emotionally abandoned. In response, she often reaches in even more, asking questions, offering comfort, trying to draw him out. But instead of opening up, he retreats further. The more she leans in, the more he pulls away. And so the vicious cycle begins. She seeks connection and he seeks space. She moves closer and he moves inward. Both partners begin to feel misunderstood. The truth is, both are simply trying to survive the same emotional storm, but they're riding it in very different boats. He copes by finding quiet. She copes by finding connection. He turns inward to reflect. She reaches outward to relate. Neither approach is wrong, they're just different. But without awareness of these differences, it's easy to see your partner as emotionally unavailable, uncaring, or distant. The key is in learning how to respect and honor each other's coping mechanisms. For the woman whose partner disappears into his cave, the most loving thing she can do is let him go, without taking it personally. His retreat is not about her. It's not about the relationship. It's about his inner need to restore order in his own mind. Instead of chasing after him or spiraling into fear, she can hold space for herself. She can journal, call a friend, take a walk, or engage in something that nurtures her own spirit. Rather than waiting in anxiety, she lives with purpose and trusts that he will return when he's ready. When he does come back, she doesn't meet him with resentment or punishment. She welcomes him with warmth and understanding. That act of grace builds emotional trust. It tells him, "You are safe here. I respect your process." And in turn, he returns more open and ready to connect. Now, for the man whose partner needs to talk when she's stressed, the challenge is different, but just as crucial. When her emotions come pouring out, it may feel overwhelming. His instincts might scream, "Get out of here," or "Fix this problem now." But if he can shift his perspective, he'll see that her talking isn't a demand for solutions. It's an invitation into intimacy. She doesn't want him to fix her. She wants him to hear her. His job is to listen, not to interrupt, not to analyze, not to correct, but simply to hold space. To nod, to say things like, "That sounds hard," or "I understand why you'd feel that way." To validate her feelings without trying to solve them. His steady presence becomes her emotional anchor. And as she feels seen and understood, her stress begins to dissolve. Connection is restored. The goal isn't to force one partner to change their nature. It's not about getting men to talk more or getting women to need less. It's about building a bridge between these two natural ways of coping. When women understand that silence doesn't mean abandonment, and when men understand that conversation isn't criticism, something powerful happens. Empathy replaces tension. Trust replaces fear. So ask yourself, are you more of a cave dweller or a talk-it-out type? Have you ever taken your partner's withdrawal personally, or misunderstood their silence as emotional coldness? How might you begin to honor their stress language, instead of expecting them to mirror your own? To summarize the key takeaways, men retreat to their caves not to escape but to heal. Respect that space and they will return. Women process stress through conversation, not for solutions but for connection. Listen with empathy and they will feel seen. Don't personalize your partner's coping strategy. Recognize it as part of their emotional blueprint. Build safety through patience and trust. And strive to meet each other halfway, not by changing who you are, but by understanding who they are. Because in the end, relationships are not about erasing differences, they're about learning to dance with them. The cave and the conversation aren't in opposition. They're simply two unique expressions of the same desire. To feel safe, to feel understood, and to be loved. When you stop demanding that your partner cope like you do, you open the door to a deeper kind of connection. One that says, I honor your world, even if it's quiet when mine is loud. Chapter 4. How to motivate the opposite sex. Why is it that so many relationships, which begin with passion, tenderness, and effort, seem to cool over time? The little gestures fade. The connection weakens. One partner begins to give more while the other seems to withdraw. If you've ever found yourself wondering, why won't they try harder? Or where did the person I fell in love with go? You're not alone. In this chapter, John Gray offers a powerful insight into this shift. Men and women are motivated by different emotional needs. And when those needs are misunderstood or ignored, motivation dries up. We start loving our partners the way we want to be loved, not the way they need to be loved. It's like handing someone your favorite dish when they're starving for something entirely different. The intention may be loving, but the impact misses the mark. To keep love alive, to rekindle the passion and effort that mark the early days of a relationship, we have to stop guessing and start understanding what truly inspires the heart of the opposite sex. Let's begin with men. Men are most motivated when they feel needed. It's not just about being useful. It's about knowing their effort makes a difference. When a man senses that his presence, his contribution, his actions are valued, he lights up. He becomes generous, attentive, and engaged. But if he starts to feel unnecessary or worse, taken for granted, his motivation begins to fade. He doesn't stop trying out of spite. He stops trying because he feels invisible, uninspired, discouraged. Women, on the other hand, are moved by a different core need, the desire to feel cherished. When a woman feels emotionally seen and adored, not for what she does, but for who she is, she blossoms. She gives more freely. She becomes more affectionate, more patient, more nurturing. But when she feels overlooked, unappreciated, or emotionally neglected, her desire to give begins to wither. She doesn't withdraw to punish. She's simply running on empty. What this means in practice is eye-opening. The very thing that might motivate you to give more could leave your partner feeling unseen, or even pushed away. And yet, so many couples fall into the same trap, giving love in the way they want to receive it. A woman might express love by helping with tasks, offering suggestions, or taking over responsibilities, thinking she's being supportive. But to the man, this can feel like micromanagement or mistrust. You don't believe I can handle it. Meanwhile, a man might try to help by offering advice or jumping into solution mode. But to the woman, it may seem like he's not really listening or valuing her emotional experience. These misfires are so common, and so preventable. Gray's advice is simple but profound. Learn what motivates your partner, and then love them that way. So, how do you motivate a man? The answer is not pressure, complaints, or manipulation. It's not about changing who he is. It's about tapping into what inspires him to rise. The key is to show him that he matters, that his presence makes a tangible difference. One powerful way to do this is by asking for help clearly and respectfully. Men love being the hero, but they don't respond well to hints or guilt trips. A direct request, "Can you help me with this?" is not weakness. It's an invitation. When he feels needed, he shows up. Next, appreciation. Say thank you for the small things and especially for the small things. Recognize his effort, even when the results aren't perfect. For men, effort is love. They may not always express it through long talks or emotional displays, but when they try, that's their love in motion. Just as important, don't try to improve him. Trust his judgment. Give him room to figure things out. When a man feels respected and appreciated, he doesn't just give more. He becomes more. Now let's look at how to motivate a woman. Unlike men, women aren't inspired by being needed. They're inspired by being emotionally nourished. She doesn't want to feel like a responsibility or a problem to be solved. She wants to feel chosen, prioritized, valued for who she is at her core. One of the most powerful ways to reach a woman's heart is empathy. Listen to her without jumping in with solutions. Let her express her emotions. Let her vent, reflect, cry, or unravel. Your job is not to fix, it's to be present. Your steady presence, your ability to simply sit with her in the moment, is a kind of love she'll never forget. Show her love in small, consistent ways. A kind word, a hug for no reason, a thoughtful gesture. It's not the grand romantic gestures that sustain love. It's the daily emotional touches that say, "You matter to me. I see you." And when she shares her feelings, validate them. Even if you don't fully understand or agree, let her know that what she feels is real and safe to express. Here's the beautiful part. When a woman feels emotionally cared for, she opens. She becomes softer, more affectionate, more giving. And just like a man rises when he feels needed, a woman radiates love when she feels cherished. But there's a cautionary truth tucked inside this wisdom. Overgiving backfires. Many women fall into the habit of giving more and more, hoping their partner will finally respond, finally reciprocate. But when their emotional needs go unmet, their giving turns into self-sacrifice. They become depleted, bitter, and resentful. They keep pouring, but the cup never fills. And the more they give, the less he seems to notice. On the other hand, some men pull back from giving when they feel unappreciated or judged. They feel like no matter what they do, it's never enough. So they stop trying. The result? A cycle of imbalance. One partner overcompensates, the other disengages, and the relationship suffers. The solution isn't giving more. It's giving wisely. It's about creating balance, not martyrdom. It's about understanding what motivates your partner and not abandoning your own emotional needs in the process. So take a moment to reflect. Are you giving love in a way you would want to receive, or in a way your partner truly needs? Do you feel valued? Or have you slipped into the background of your relationship? When you ask for help or share your emotions, how does your partner respond? From this chapter, a few guiding principles emerge. Men thrive when they feel needed and appreciated. Let them know their efforts matter, both practically and emotionally. Women thrive when they feel cherished and heard. Show her she matters through presence, empathy, and thoughtful attention. Give from love, not from a desire to earn love. But don't give so much that you lose yourself in the process. Speak up. Unspoken needs turn into quiet resentments. Honest communication, done kindly, invites true connection. Motivation is ongoing. It's not a one-time gesture. It's a lifestyle of mutual investment and emotional fluency. In the end, sustaining love isn't about forcing or fixing. It's about understanding, about tuning in to what your partner truly needs, not what you think they need. When you begin to love this way, intentionally, attentively, and respectfully, something incredible happens. Love becomes easier. Giving becomes joyful. The relationship stops feeling like a negotiation and starts feeling like a dance. Because at the heart of every strong relationship is not just love, but the daily decision to give in a way the other person can actually feel. Chapter 5. Speaking different languages. Have you ever said something with the best of intentions, only to watch it land all wrong? Met with confusion, silence, or even an emotional explosion? Or perhaps you've been on the receiving end, left stunned by a comment from your partner thinking, "How could they say that? Do they even care how I feel?" Welcome to the tangled and often treacherous terrain of gendered communication. This is where simple phrases like, "I'm fine," "You never listen," or "Nothing's wrong," can mean completely different things depending on whether they come from Mars or Venus. In this chapter, John Gray explores one of the most critical and often overlooked truths in relationships. While men and women may technically speak the same language, they use it for entirely different emotional purposes. And if we don't take the time to understand those differences, we risk misinterpreting love as rejection, care as control, and emotional need as criticism. But once we learn to translate, we gain the tools to bridge misunderstandings, deepen connection, and turn conflict into clarity. Let's begin with why men and women talk the way they do. For Martian's men, language is primarily a tool for conveying facts, solving problems, or asserting autonomy. Talking is often practical, purpose-driven, and concise. When a man speaks, he's often trying to fix, inform, or explain. It's less about emotional connection and more about control, clarity, or resolution. Venusian women, on the other hand, use language as a way to connect, explore emotion, and nurture closeness. For women, conversation is an emotional experience. It's how they bond, how they feel seen, and how they process life. Talking isn't necessarily about fixing a problem. It's about being heard. These differences in purpose create fertile ground for miscommunication, even when love is present. Imagine a woman coming home, upset about a conflict with a friend. She starts venting, sharing how she felt ignored, betrayed, or misunderstood. Her partner listens and immediately responds, "Just stop talking to her. She's clearly toxic." To him, this is helpful. He's cutting to the chase, offering a solution, showing he's got her back. But to her, it can feel cold, dismissive, and even patronizing. She didn't want a solution. She wanted to feel heard. She was reaching for connection, not correction. Now reverse the situation. She says, "You never listen to me." To her, it's a cry for closeness. She's really saying, "I miss you. I feel disconnected. I need your attention." But to him, it sounds like a sweeping accusation, an attack on his entire character. He hears, "You're always failing. You're never good enough." He shuts down and she feels even more ignored. The cycle continues. The message, once again, gets lost in translation. What Gray offers next is a powerful insight. Once we recognize that we're speaking different emotional dialects, we can begin to translate, to decode the deeper messages beneath the words. Let's take a closer look. When a woman says, "You never listen," what she often means is, "I feel emotionally disconnected right now, and I need to feel close to you." When she says, "I feel like you don't love me anymore," she's not accusing, she's reaching. She means, "I'm feeling insecure and need reassurance." When she says, "We never go out anymore," it's not a complaint but a longing. "I miss having fun with you. I want to feel special again." These are not attacks, they are invitations for closeness. Now let's translate the Martian phrases. When a man says, "I'm fine," what he often means is, "I don't want to talk about this right now. I just need space and I'll be okay." When he says, "It's no big deal," he's likely saying, "Let me process this on my own. I don't want to overcomplicate it." When he says, "Just don't worry about it," it's not dismissal, it's a plea for trust. "Let me handle this. I need to feel capable." These phrases, too, are not rejections. They're expressions of a need for space, independence, or emotional regrouping. The real magic happens when both partners stop reacting to the literal words and begin to listen for the emotional truth behind them. That shift, from surface to substance, can transform the way couples communicate. But words aren't the only factor. Timing and tone play a huge role too. Even the right words can land badly if delivered with sarcasm, impatience, or at the wrong moment. For instance, asking, "What's wrong?" The second your partner walks through the door after a stressful day may seem like care, but it might feel like an ambush. Or saying, "Relax," even gently when your partner is clearly upset, can feel invalidating. That's why Gray urges couples to be mindful of emotional timing. Don't force conversations when your partner is clearly not ready. Match your energy to theirs. If they're quiet, approach softly. If they're energized, don't shut them down. And always use a tone that signals safety, not stress. One of the most practical tools Gray introduces in this chapter is the power of rephrasing. When you need to express something important, try framing it in a way that invites connection instead of conflict. For example, instead of "You never help around here," try, "I really appreciate it when you pitch in, it means a lot to me." Instead of "Why don't you ever talk to me?" say, "I miss our conversations. Can we find some time to reconnect?" Instead of "You don't love me anymore," say, "I'm feeling a little vulnerable today, can I have a hug?" Rephrasing doesn't mean suppressing your needs. It means expressing them in a way your partner can hear without becoming defensive. It's less about changing what you say and more about changing how you say it. To reflect, ask yourself, do you tend to speak from logic or emotion when you're upset? Are there phrases you use often that might be landing differently than you intend? And is there a recurring argument in your relationship that might actually be a translation issue? Here are the core takeaways from this chapter. Men and women often use the same words but assign different meanings. Understanding these emotional dialects is essential. What may sound like criticism is often a plea for connection. Look past the tone and listen to the need. Rephrasing your message with compassion can open doors instead of building walls. Timing and tone are just as critical as the message itself. Wait for the right moment to connect. Learn your partner's emotional language. Pay attention to the phrases they use most and what they really mean. In the end, communication isn't about perfectly chosen words. It's about learning to feel what your partner is really saying, even when they don't say it perfectly. It's about choosing to understand instead of defend. Because real love isn't built on flawless speech. It's built on compassionate translation. When we stop expecting our partner to speak like we do, and instead become curious about how they communicate, we begin to build something stronger than just words: emotional intimacy. That's the language that lasts. Chapter 6: Men are like rubber bands. Have you ever been in that beautiful, connected space with your partner? Everything flowing easily, emotions aligned, affection exchanged effortlessly, only to have them suddenly grow distant? One day you're wrapped in closeness and the next they've gone quiet. Maybe they retreat to the other room. Maybe they stop responding the same way. Nothing happened, no fight, no conflict. But something feels different. The warmth is gone, and you're left wondering, did I do something wrong? This experience is not rare. In fact, it's one of the most common points of confusion in relationships, and one that John Gray unpacks with a metaphor that has brought clarity and comfort to millions. Men are like rubber bands. They pull away, and then they snap back. This instinct to retreat isn't a punishment. It's not about losing interest or falling out of love. It's not even a conscious choice. It's a natural emotional rhythm. A cycle built into the way many men regulate their closeness, independence, and inner emotional balance. Understanding this rhythm is key to avoiding misinterpretation, emotional panic, and relational breakdowns. Picture a rubber band stretched between two fingers. You pull it back, creating distance, tension, and then snap, it returns swiftly and with energy. This is how men often move through emotional intimacy. First, they experience closeness, love, affection, physical and emotional connection. Then, almost inexplicably, they feel the need to pull away, to retreat, to be alone. This is not a red flag. It's part of their emotional biology. They need solitude to reconnect with their sense of independence, to recalibrate their inner compass. It is only in that space of withdrawal that they are able to truly miss their partner again. And when they've had enough space, they return restored, reinvigorated, and ready to connect again. This snapback is often marked by renewed affection, attention, and emotional availability. But here's the problem. Many relationships never get to this return phase because the cycle gets interrupted. From a woman's perspective, this withdrawal can be deeply confusing and even terrifying. When a man grows distant, she often interprets it through her own emotional language. She may think, he's losing interest. I must have done something wrong. Or why is he shutting me out? Her instinct is to restore the connection. She reaches out. She asks questions. She tries to draw him closer. She expresses affection. She tries to fix what doesn't seem right. To her, these actions are loving and logical. But to him, they feel invasive, like someone tugging on a retreating rubber band. And the more she pursues, the more he feels the need to stretch away. Not because he doesn't care, but because his emotional rhythm is being interrupted. As this dynamic intensifies, both partners begin to suffer. She feels rejected. He feels pressured. She worries he's drifting. He feels suffocated. And the rubber band, instead of snapping back with energy and renewed closeness, remains stretched thin, strained, or worse, ready to break. So what's the solution? The answer is as simple as it is counterintuitive. Let him go. When a man begins to pull away, don't chase. Don't panic. Don't punish. Instead, lean into calm confidence. Trust the rubber band. Give him the space he needs. Not with resentment, not with silence or coldness, but with trust. Send the unspoken message. I know you care. I know this space isn't about me. And I'll be here when you're ready to come back. This kind of emotional security is powerful. It tells him he's safe to retreat and return on his own terms. It protects the rhythm of the relationship, allowing the cycle of closeness, distance, and reconnection to unfold naturally. And when he does return, because he will return, meet him with warmth, not interrogation. Don't demand explanations. Don't guilt him for the space he needed. Celebrate the return. Embrace the connection. That's how the rubber band stays elastic, resilient, and alive. It's important to note that women need space too. But their relationship to emotional closeness is often different. Where distance replenishes many men, connection replenishes many women. For a woman, sharing, bonding, and emotional intimacy aren't draining. They're energizing. So when she senses her partner growing distant, her natural instinct is to close the gap. She seeks reassurance. She reaches for connection. This isn't desperation, it's biology. It's her attempt to restore emotional harmony. The key for women is to develop the self-awareness to pause and breathe when they sense that retreat. To remind themselves, this isn't about me. This is his rhythm. That understanding can prevent the cycle from being disrupted by fear or overreaction. For couples, this means learning to support each other's natural emotional flow. When a man needs to pull back, the woman can use that time to focus on herself. Pursue hobbies, spend time with friends, engage in self-care. Not as a distraction but as an act of trust. And when he returns, she can meet him with grace. No cold shoulder. No emotional toll to pay. Just love and openness. And for men, it helps tremendously to communicate, however briefly, when they feel the need to retreat. Even something as simple as, "I just need a little time to myself. I'll be back soon," can offer a woman the reassurance she craves. When he does return, acknowledging her patience, thanks for understanding. I really needed that reset. Goes a long way. But what happens when this rhythm is broken? When women don't allow the retreat, when they chase, question, guilt, or cling, they interrupt the man's cycle. He no longer associates closeness with comfort. Instead, he begins to associate it with pressure. And in trying to protect himself, he may begin avoiding intimacy altogether. Distance becomes defense, rather than rhythm. On the flip side, when men retreat and don't return, when they disconnect emotionally and fail to offer closure or reassurance, the woman feels abandoned. Her trust erodes. Her emotions shut down. She becomes anxious, resentful, and distant in her own way. And love begins to dissolve not from a lack of feeling, but from a lack of emotional rhythm. To avoid these breakdowns, both partners must learn to honor the cycle. Trust the retreat. Celebrate the return. So reflect for a moment. Have you ever panicked when your partner pulled away and tried to force closeness? Have you ever felt overwhelmed by someone's emotional needs, unsure of how to ask for space? How might your relationship change if you learn to trust the rubber band rather than fear it? Here are the essential takeaways. Men naturally need to pull away to recharge. It's not a sign of rejection, but a sign of rhythm. Women often reach out just as men are seeking space. This mismatch can create unnecessary conflict unless understood. Trust the pullback. Allow space. Don't chase or criticize. Trust the return. When a man feels free to leave, he comes back stronger, more connected, and ready to love. Don't punish these emotional rhythms. Work with them. Dance with them. And your relationship will breathe with greater ease. Because love isn't a straight line. It's a dance of closeness and space, approach and retreat. The more we trust the movement, the less we fear the silence. And in that trust, the rubber band stretches and returns, not with tension but with energy, not with fear but with freedom. Let go. And believe in the snapback. Chapter 7: Women are like waves. Have you ever been basking in a moment of warmth and connection with your partner? Everything flowing just right. Affection is easy, the energy light. Only to suddenly feel her withdraw? One minute, she's radiant and full of joy, and the next, she's quiet, irritable, or in tears. There's no obvious reason, no argument, no change in circumstance. But something's different. Something has shifted. And if you've ever sat there wondering, what just happened? You're not alone. In this chapter, John Gray introduces one of his most tender and powerful metaphors. Women are like waves. They rise. They crest. They fall. And then they rise again. This isn't moodiness. It isn't instability. It's not even hormonal. Rather, it's a natural emotional rhythm, a wave-like cycle that many women experience. When it's understood and respected, it becomes one of the most beautiful elements of a relationship. But when it's judged, dismissed, or resisted, it becomes a source of confusion, frustration, and emotional distance. To understand this wave is to offer your partner, or yourself, one of the greatest acts of emotional love. So what does it actually mean that women are like waves? Picture the ocean. Powerful, dynamic, alive. A wave builds with energy rising in strength and motion. Then it crests at its peak, before crashing, tumbling, pulling back into the sea. And from there the cycle begins again. This is the emotional life of many women. There are moments when she feels on top of the world, full of love, joy, confidence, and clarity. And then, seemingly without cause, that energy dips. She may feel sadness, fatigue, frustration, or doubt. She may cry without knowing why. She may become quiet or sensitive, distant or overwhelmed. And after this emotional release, if she's supported with compassion, she begins to rise again, renewed, lighter, and more connected than before. The key, Gray emphasizes, is that this emotional descent is not a flaw. It's not a sign that something is wrong. It's not even something to be fixed. Rather, it's a release, a reset. It's the emotional body processing the weight of giving, doing, managing, nurturing, and letting go so she can rise again. But when her descent is judged, when she's told to calm down, snap out of it, or stop being so emotional, the wave becomes blocked. Instead of flowing through her feelings, she begins to suppress them. Resentment builds. Recovery takes longer. And in many cases, the joy that should have followed never arrives. So why do women's waves crash? What causes this emotional dip? It's often not a single event. It's the quiet buildup of emotional labor, giving without replenishment, supporting others without being supported, stretching without rest. Women often rise by giving, offering love, presence, energy. But if this giving isn't balanced by receiving, if her emotional tank remains empty, the wave eventually has to crash. She can't stay up forever. In the dip, she may feel unseen, overwhelmed, unappreciated, alone, emotionally heavy for no clear reason. This isn't weakness. This is emotional gravity. And the descent isn't something to interrupt. It's something to hold space for. But for many men, the wave is a mystery. From a Martian perspective, it makes no logical sense. They may think, we were fine yesterday, what changed? Why is she sad when nothing's wrong? Did I do something? How do I fix this? Their instinct is to solve the problem. They try to help with logic, advice, or even space. You're overthinking it. Just calm down. You'll feel better soon. Don't worry about it, it'll pass. But these well-meaning efforts often backfire. Because when a woman is in the valley of her wave, she doesn't want answers. She wants presence. She wants safety. She wants the freedom to feel. Imagine she's in the ocean, caught in a storm. What she needs isn't someone shouting instructions from the beach. What she needs is someone who stays anchored nearby. Not panicking. Not trying to fix the sea. Just staying close. Steady. Loving. So what should a man do when the wave crashes? First, don't try to fix it. Understand that she's not broken. She's not blaming you. She's simply descending into her emotional truth, and it's temporary. She will rise again. Second, validate her feelings. Say things like, I'm here. That sounds hard. You're not alone. I love you, even in this moment. Third, give her space but not distance. Don't hover, and don't disappear. Let her decide what she needs. She may want to talk. She may want quiet, but she'll feel safer knowing you're emotionally nearby. Fourth, don't take it personally. Her mood, her silence, her sadness, these aren't attacks. They're emotional releases. They're part of her internal rhythm. Finally, trust the process. The greatest gift you can give is faith in her ability to feel her way through the dip and rise again. But this chapter isn't just for men. It's also a mirror for women. If you're a woman, maybe you've felt confused by your own emotional lows. Maybe you've tried to hide them, suppress them, or power through. Maybe you've felt ashamed of your sadness, or told yourself to stay strong. But what Gray gently offers is an invitation to honor your wave. Ask yourself, what am I holding in? Where have I been giving without receiving? What do I need emotionally right now? Can I trust myself to fall and rise again? And when you do open up to your partner, be clear about your needs. I'm not asking you to fix this, I just need you here. This will pass. I just need to feel it. I'm not upset with you. I'm just working through some emotions. When you own your wave, your partner doesn't have to fear it. It becomes part of the relationship's natural rhythm, not a disruption. In fact, this metaphor pairs perfectly with the previous chapter, where men were described as rubber bands, needing to stretch away before snapping back. Just as men need distance, women need depth. When each partner understands and supports the other's emotional cycle, the relationship finds flow. The man learns not to fear her wave. The woman learns not to chase his cave. This creates trust. It allows for space without fear, vulnerability without panic, intimacy without pressure. So reflect. Have you ever misread your partner's emotional low as a sign that something was wrong with the relationship? If you're a woman, have you allowed yourself to truly feel your wave? Or have you tried to keep rising to meet everyone's expectations? And if you're a man, can you sit quietly in the storm, anchored, calm, present, without trying to escape or solve? Chapter 8. Discovering our different emotional needs. Have you ever poured your heart into your relationship, giving time, energy, affection, only to feel like your partner still isn't fully satisfied? Or maybe you've received a lot from your partner, gifts, attention, help, but something inside still feels unmet, as if the most important part of you has gone untouched. This quiet disconnect is far more common than most couples realize. The effort is there. The love is real. But something is missing. John Gray explains why we tend to give love in the way we most want to receive it, not in the way our partner actually needs it. That's the quiet frustration so many couples live with, well-intentioned love that misses the mark. It's not because we don't care. It's because we speak different emotional dialects. We offer what feels meaningful to us, assuming it will naturally be meaningful to them. But in truth, while both men and women value all expressions of love, we tend to prioritize different emotional needs, and often we don't even realize it. Understanding these differences can be a breakthrough moment in any relationship. It's like discovering a secret key, the kind that unlocks emotional doors you didn't even know were closed. Gray calls this common mistake misdirected love. When we don't know our partner's true emotional priorities, we give them what we would want. If acts of service speak most to you, you might constantly do things for your partner, cook, clean, handle errands as your love language. If words of affirmation fill your heart, you might shower your partner in praise and encouragement. These gestures are genuine and heartfelt. But what if your partner's deepest need isn't acts of service or words? What if they're craving emotional presence, or appreciation or trust? That's where the wires get crossed. You're speaking English and they're longing for French. Both beautiful languages, but if they don't match, the meaning is lost. And when that gap persists, even in otherwise good relationships, it leads to emotional fatigue, resentment, or confusion. You're both trying. You're both giving. But neither of you feels truly seen. To bridge this gap, Gray introduces a powerful framework, the primary love needs of men and women. While everyone appreciates all forms of love, these 6 needs, 3 for women, 3 for men, represent the emotional nutrients each partner most depends on to feel fulfilled. Let's start with women. According to Gray, women have 3 primary emotional needs: caring, understanding, and respect. When a woman feels cared for, she feels safe. She knows she matters. She knows her emotions, her well-being, and her world are important to her partner. This care shows up not in grand gestures, but in consistent attentiveness. Asking how her day went, offering help, showing up without being asked. Understanding is the second essential need. She doesn't necessarily need her problems solved. What she needs is to feel heard. When her partner listens without interrupting, fixing, or minimizing, she feels emotionally connected. She doesn't want logic. She wants empathy. She wants to be seen and acknowledged in her emotional truth. Respect rounds out the trio. A woman needs her boundaries honored, her perspectives invited, her intuition taken seriously. When her opinions are respected, even when they differ, she feels emotionally safe to open up. Men, on the other hand, prioritize a different emotional trio: trust, acceptance, and appreciation. To a man, being trusted is foundational. He wants to feel that his partner believes in him, in his choices, in his ability to navigate life. Constant questioning or micromanagement can feel like a lack of faith. When he's trusted, he rises to the occasion. He feels confident, strong, and connected. Acceptance is the next pillar. Men want to be embraced as they are, not seen as a project to be improved. The moment they feel they're being subtly reshaped, corrected, or managed, they begin to shut down. Acceptance tells him, "You're enough. I love you as you are." That message softens his heart and deepens his commitment. Appreciation finally is fuel. When a man feels that his efforts are noticed, whether it's fixing the car, taking care of something without being asked, or simply being consistent, it energizes him. A simple thank you can go a long way. And when that gratitude is sincere, he becomes more motivated to keep giving. The problem arises when these needs are misunderstood or mismatched. Consider this common pattern. A woman feels upset and wants to talk. She wants understanding. Her partner, feeling pressure to make things better, pulls away or begins offering solutions. She interprets his withdrawal as a lack of caring, so she pushes harder. He feels criticized or misunderstood, like he's not being accepted, and shuts down even more. The more she needs connection, the more he needs space. And both feel unloved despite trying their best. This is not a failure of love. It's a failure of alignment. But the good news is it's fixable. Once you begin to understand your partner's emotional priorities, everything changes. You stop giving love that bounces off and start giving love that lands. To love a woman well, practice asking how she's really doing. Not just casually, but with genuine interest. Let her know you care about her inner world. When she shares, reflect her feelings back to her with kindness. That makes total sense. And when you make decisions, involve her. Let her see that her voice influenced the outcome. These are not grand gestures. They're small acts that feed her core emotional needs. To love a man well, express confidence in him. Even when he's still figuring it out. Say, "I know you'll handle it, I trust you." Resist the urge to improve or correct small things. Let some things slide. And notice what he does. "Thanks for handling that. I really appreciate it." These simple words can light him up more than you realize. None of this is about manipulation. It's not about being performative. It's about giving intentionally. Tuning in to what actually fills your partner's emotional tank, so they can love from a place of fullness instead of frustration. And when you do, everything shifts. When a woman feels cared for, understood, and respected, she opens. She softens. She becomes more affectionate, more trusting, more emotionally available. She blooms. When a man feels trusted, accepted, and appreciated, he steps up. He becomes more present, more generous, more attentive. He rises. You both begin giving, not to get something back, but because your cup is full and overflowing. Love stops feeling like a transaction and becomes a natural extension of your emotional safety. So ask yourself, which emotional needs matter most to you? Have you been giving your partner what they actually need, or what you would want in their place? And what small shift could you make this week to speak more fluently in your partner's emotional language? Because here's what it comes down to. Love is not one size fits all. What fills one heart may not touch another. Women thrive when they feel cared for, understood, and respected. Men thrive when they feel trusted, accepted, and appreciated. Most misfires in love are just misdirected effort, not malice, not neglect. A small adjustment in how you love can lead to a massive shift in how your love is received. Because real love isn't just about trying harder, it's about understanding better. And when you stop giving love the way you want to receive it, and start giving love in the way your partner needs to feel it, you create a connection that doesn't just survive, it transforms. A connection where love no longer gets lost in translation. Because the greatest gift you can offer is not just love. It's love that lands. Chapter 9. How to avoid arguments. Arguments don't always begin with shouting matches or harsh words. Often they begin with a sigh, a raised eyebrow, a misunderstood tone. Something small, even subtle, that sets off a cascade of emotional reactions. And before you know it, what started as a simple conversation turns into a battle. Both partners defensive, distant, and drained. Have you ever experienced that? You start off with a calm intention, maybe just pointing out a concern or needing a bit of help, only to watch things unravel so quickly that, afterward, you can't even remember how it all escalated. What was the original point? Did it really matter? John Gray helps us understand that arguments usually aren't about the thing we're arguing about. Sure, couples bicker over money, housework, parenting, sex, and extended family. But underneath those topics, the real fuel for conflict is emotional. It's about feeling unappreciated, invalidated, criticized, or ignored. It's about how we feel when our deeper emotional needs go unmet, and when we're unable to communicate those needs clearly, gently, and at the right time. When emotions aren't heard or understood, we lash out or shut down. When we feel blamed, we become defensive. And that's when connection is replaced with conflict. Understanding the emotional dynamics behind arguments is like lifting the curtain in a dark room. Suddenly, you can see what's really there. And once you do, you can choose a different way to respond. Gray reveals that men and women not only argue for different reasons, but also argue differently. Men tend to interpret emotional conversations as criticism or control. Their instinctive response is to defend themselves, either through logic, counterarguments, or withdrawal. They often want to shut the argument down quickly, to restore a sense of control or to avoid further emotional tension. Women, on the other hand, typically argue because they feel dismissed, ignored, or emotionally disconnected. Their instinct is to pursue, asking questions, expressing emotion, or bringing up past examples in an attempt to be heard. They don't want to win the argument. They want to feel understood. Unfortunately, this dynamic creates a cycle. A woman expresses emotion in a way that sounds critical. The man gets defensive and responds with detachment or resistance. She then escalates, needing even more emotional engagement. He shuts down further or lashes out. And just like that, both partners are locked in a dance neither one wants. The good news? This cycle can be broken. It begins by recognizing the tone. The way you say something matters just as much, if not more, than what you're saying. A sentence like, "You never help around here," almost guarantees defensiveness. But saying, "I'm feeling overwhelmed, could you help me with this?" invites cooperation. A soft approach can make all the difference. Another key shift is to express needs, not blame. When blame enters the room, phrases like "you always," "you never," or "why don't you ever?" the other person stops listening. They feel accused. But when you speak from your own emotional truth, "I need," "it would mean a lot to me if," or "I'd love some support with this," you invite compassion rather than conflict. And when things do start to escalate, take a pause. It's not avoidance. It's wisdom. It's self-regulation. If you notice voices getting louder, tension rising, or words starting to sting, say something like, "I want to talk about this, but I need a moment to calm down." Then step away. Breathe. Come back later when the emotional charge has dissipated. Another pitfall Gray warns against is the temptation to win the argument. But in relationships, victory isn't about being right. It's about being connected. Ask yourself in the heat of the moment, do I want to be right, or do I want to be close? Defensiveness closes the heart. Curiosity opens it. One of the most powerful tools Gray introduces is the love letter technique. When talking leads to tension, write instead. A love letter, in this sense, isn't about flowery romance. It's a structured emotional reset. You start by writing out your feelings, anger, sadness, fear, regret, and then love. Then you move into expressing your needs and ending with appreciation for your partner. Writing slows the conversation. It creates space for honesty, and it allows your partner to receive your emotions without reacting to tone, volume, or timing. It becomes a bridge, especially when verbal communication feels too charged. But what if you're doing all of this, and your partner still argues? Stay calm. Don't match their energy. If they're lashing out, take a deep breath and respond with, "I can tell you're upset, and I want to understand, but I need us to talk about this more calmly." And if that doesn't land, walk away with care, not punishment. Let the storm pass. You can't control your partner's behavior, but you can always control your response. And often that alone shifts the entire dynamic. So ask yourself, when tensions rise, do you escalate or retreat? Are you expressing your needs clearly, or letting them come out as criticism? How might your tone, timing, or language change the outcome of your next tough conversation? Because here's the truth Gray leaves us with. Most arguments aren't really about the topic at hand. They're about feeling unseen or unloved. Tone shapes perception. A gentle voice opens doors, a loud one slams shut. Expressing needs invites closeness. Blame invites resistance. Pausing is power. Silence, when used wisely, is a gift. And sometimes writing speaks louder than words ever could. Ultimately, arguments don't begin with anger. They begin with pain, misunderstood, unheard, unacknowledged. But when we slow down, soften our voice, and speak with clarity and compassion, we find something surprising. Most fights were never about winning. They were about wanting to feel close, safe, and connected. Because behind every argument is a longing, a need waiting to be heard. Not with defensiveness, but with love. Chapter 10: Scoring Points with the Opposite Sex. Have you ever gone out of your way to do something truly special for your partner? Maybe bought an expensive gift, planned a romantic evening, or solved a stressful problem, only to be met with a lukewarm response? Or worse, to see them light up in joy over something someone else did that seemed minor? Meanwhile, you're left wondering, what about everything I do? This confusing dynamic, where love seems to go unnoticed despite your best efforts, isn't just frustrating. It's emotionally draining. And according to John Gray, it all comes down to one surprising truth. Men and women score points differently in relationships. What seems huge and heroic to you may not feel very meaningful to your partner. And what feels small and routine to you may, in their world, count as everything. It's not about logic. It's not about effort. It's about emotional currency, and each partner has their own unique way of measuring value. So let's look into the emotional scorekeeping systems that quietly shape how we give and receive love. At the heart of Gray's insight is this simple but radical idea. Women tend to assign equal emotional value to each act of love, no matter how big or small. One rose, one kiss, one thoughtful text? That's 1 point. A surprise vacation to Italy? Also 1 point. For women, love is measured not in scale but in consistency. It's the ongoing rhythm of care and connection that builds emotional trust. She doesn't need a grand display. She needs daily, meaningful engagement. Each gesture says, I'm thinking of you. I care. I'm present. Men, on the other hand, tend to think in volume. Big acts of service, like buying a house, working long hours, or planning a big anniversary trip, feel like major deposits in the relationship bank. And from their perspective, those should carry them for a while. They believe they've racked up enough points to coast, at least temporarily. But here's where it breaks down. The woman's emotional tank doesn't stay full from occasional big gestures. If she's not receiving regular, visible signs of love, she begins to feel empty, even when the man thinks he's already done enough. It's a classic misunderstanding. The man feels unappreciated for the big things. The woman feels unseen for the small things. Both partners are giving, but not in the language the other understands. So why do small acts matter so much to women? Because they register emotionally. They create a steady heartbeat in the relationship, a rhythm of reassurance. Holding her hand, saying goodnight, bringing her coffee, texting I love you during a busy day. Each one is a spark that keeps the emotional fire burning. It tells her, you're still on my mind. You still matter. And crucially, big gestures don't compensate for a lack of small ones. It's like trying to go to the gym once a month for 6 hours instead of doing 20-minute workouts daily. The effort is intense, but the consistency is what delivers results. From the male perspective, this often feels unfair. Men may think, I just bought her a car. Why is she upset I forgot to kiss her goodnight? Or, I planned an entire weekend getaway. How is she mad I didn't help clean up after dinner? But once men understand that love doesn't store up, in the same way for women, the confusion lifts. And the frustration turns into opportunity. Gray offers a powerful reframe. When men focus on giving frequent, simple, thoughtful gestures, rather than saving up for big displays, they score major emotional points with less effort. It becomes sustainable, natural, and incredibly rewarding. For women, there's a role to play too. Gray encourages them to help men succeed, not by demanding perfection, but by offering gentle clarity and appreciation. Instead of hoping he'll magically guess what she needs, a woman might say, it would mean a lot if you hugged me when you get home. Can you check in with me once during the day? Just a quick text would make me feel so loved. When men see that their small efforts truly matter, and when those efforts are met with visible appreciation, they feel like they're winning. And nothing motivates a man more than knowing he's winning in his partner's eyes. Celebration fuels consistency. Appreciation keeps the gestures coming. Gray even provides a list of ideas, small simple ways for men to score big. Bringing her flowers, even just one. Calling her just to say, "I'm thinking of you." Holding her hand in public. Saying thank you. Listening without jumping in with advice. Opening the door. Offering help. Surprising her with coffee. Giving her a sincere compliment. Each one of these acts earns the same emotional point, and each one adds up quickly. So what about women? How do they score points with men? Men score a bit differently. For them, love is often felt through respect, appreciation, and trust. They may not need as many daily gestures, but they thrive on knowing their efforts are noticed. For a woman to earn points with her partner, she doesn't need constant praise. She just needs to recognize his heart and reflect it back. That might look like trusting his decisions, thanking him for providing or helping, even in the small stuff, letting him do things his own way without correcting him, showing confidence in his intentions. These may seem subtle, but for a man they're deeply validating. At the end of the day, this chapter is not about who's doing more. It's about whether love is being delivered in a form that's actually felt. So pause and ask yourself, are you giving your partner what you think is meaningful, or what they actually receive as love? What one small, repeatable gesture could you offer daily that would speak volumes in their language? How might your relationship change if you stopped trying to score your way and started learning how they keep score? Because real love isn't about tallying points to prove your worth. It's about building a scoreboard that works for both of you, so no one feels like they're losing. Here's what Gray leaves us with. Men and women keep emotional score differently. Men value big, visible efforts. Women count everything, and consistency is key. A small, thoughtful act of love every day speaks louder than a grand gesture once a month. Men feel empowered when they know how to win. Women feel loved when they're consistently shown care. Understanding your partner's emotional scoring system isn't manipulation. It's fluency. It's learning the rules of their emotional world. When both partners play by each other's rules, everyone wins. You don't have to be perfect in love. You just need to be attuned. When you take the time to understand how your partner measures care, you stop spinning your wheels and start building real, lasting intimacy. Because love doesn't have to be hard. It just needs to be understood. Chapter 11. How to communicate difficult feelings. There's a common scenario that plays out in relationships all too often. One partner holds in their frustration to keep the peace, telling themselves it's not worth bringing up. But then, inevitably, those feelings explode, sometimes over something small, and suddenly the conversation is no longer about the issue but about the tone, the volume, the hurt. Or maybe the opposite happens. One person opens up, quietly and vulnerably, only to be met with defensiveness or withdrawal. The end result? More distance, not more closeness. Why does this happen? Why is it so hard to talk about the things that matter most? The hurts, fears, disappointments, in a way that leads to connection rather than conflict. John Gray argues that the problem isn't the emotion itself, it's how we express it. And more importantly, it's that we were never really taught how to share the hard things in a way that feels emotionally safe, for ourselves and for our partner. Most of us grew up in environments where difficult emotions weren't welcomed. We learned to suppress them, deflect them with humor, lash out in anger, or pretend everything was fine. Women often internalize the belief that being expressive makes them too emotional, while men were taught to fear judgment or failure if they exposed their vulnerability. And so, we became fluent in avoiding emotional truth rather than communicating it. But deep down, both partners usually crave the same thing: to be able to speak their truth without losing love. Gray teaches that expressing difficult feelings is not about blaming your partner or releasing rage. It's about reconnecting with your own emotions, and then inviting your partner into that space with clarity, care, and gentleness. But to do that, we need a framework, a structure to hold the intensity of what we feel without it spilling out in damaging ways. That's where the love letter technique comes in. Despite the name, this isn't about poetry or romantic cliches. It's a powerful step-by-step method for expressing even the most difficult emotions, anger, sadness, fear, in a way that brings partners closer together rather than driving them apart. Here's how it works. Step 1 is to write a love letter that moves through 5 emotional layers. Each layer offers insight into the deeper emotions beneath the surface and allows for a safe, compassionate release of what's been building inside. Anger. Start by naming what made you feel mad or irritated. It could be something as simple as, "I'm angry that you ignored me at dinner," or, "I'm upset you didn't call when you said you would." The key is to be honest without blaming. Sadness. Next, explore what hurt you. "I feel sad that we've been so distant," or "It hurt that I felt unimportant." This step begins to soften the energy. Fear. Now dig a little deeper. "I'm afraid you don't care as much as I do," or "I'm scared we're growing apart." Vulnerability begins to take center stage here. Regret. This is where you take ownership. "I regret not telling you sooner," or "I'm sorry if I've seemed cold." This builds emotional safety and mutual responsibility. Love. Finally, return to your heart. "I love you. I want to feel close again. I believe we can get through this." Love reframes everything and turns a confrontation into an invitation. This sequence is incredibly healing. It moves you from reactive emotion to heartfelt truth, from defensive energy to open-hearted presence. And when you deliver it, whether by reading it aloud, sharing it as a note, or using it as a mental script for a conversation, you offer your partner a gift. Clarity without blame, truth without judgment, emotion without chaos. And this is why the technique works so well. It helps you organize your feelings for yourself before you ever share them. You defuse the emotional charge, so your delivery becomes calmer, more centered. And your partner? They no longer feel attacked. They feel trusted. They feel invited into your inner world. Couples who've used this method often report that some of their most healing, connective moments came not from perfect communication, but from sharing these structured letters that made space for every layer of truth. Because ultimately, the words, "Here's what's really going on inside me," are some of the most courageous and intimate things you can ever say. Now, what if you're not a writer? That's okay. The goal isn't to craft a masterpiece, it's to tell the truth. And if putting pen to paper feels daunting, you can use the 5-layer structure to speak your emotions, framing your conversation like this: "I'm feeling a lot right now, and I want to share it in a way that's honest but not hurtful. I'm going to start with what made me angry, then tell you what I'm sad about, what I'm scared of, what I regret, and finally what I still love." That kind of framing helps your partner drop their defenses. It signals safety and structure. It tells them, this is about closeness, not combat. Of course, sharing is only one half of the equation. The other half is listening, truly receiving your partner's emotional truth without jumping in to correct, defend, or solve. When your partner opens up, resist the urge to interrupt or explain. Instead, try responses like, "Thank you for telling me. That makes sense. Is there anything more you want me to understand?" When we feel truly heard, not fixed, not judged, something profound happens. Healing begins. Walls come down. Hearts soften. Trust is restored. And maybe that's the deeper lesson of this chapter. It's not just about learning how to speak your truth. It's about trusting that your truth deserves to be heard, and that love doesn't require perfection. It requires courage. It requires two people willing to show up with their full hearts, even when it's uncomfortable. So ask yourself, do you tend to lash out when hurt or shut down? Do you skip over certain emotions like fear, sadness, or regret because they feel too raw? What would it feel like to express all of it? Not just what's easy, because when you share the full truth, layered with honesty, vulnerability, and love, your partner doesn't just hear your pain, they hear your heart. And that is what brings you closer. Chapter 12. How to ask for support and get it. Have you ever found yourself juggling everything? Managing the house, coordinating the kids' schedules, planning events, making decisions, and quietly wondering why your partner doesn't seem to notice or offer help? Maybe you've asked for support before, only for it to end in frustration. He forgot, did it half-heartedly, or got defensive. Or maybe deep down you've thought, why do I even have to ask? In this chapter, John Gray speaks directly to that feeling, the hidden resentment many women carry when they're overwhelmed and undersupported. His message is clear and surprising. Men actually want to help. They love giving. But there's a catch. They only give when they feel their effort is wanted, valued, and respected. Women, on the other hand, often ask in ways that unintentionally discourage the very support they're hoping for. It's not out of malice. It's a misunderstanding of emotional wiring. Men and women don't speak the same language when it comes to giving and receiving help. One of the most common mistakes Gray identifies is the silent expectation. The belief that a partner should just know what needs to be done. It's a deeply emotional stance, built on the idea that, if he really loved me, he'd anticipate my needs. He'd offer to help before I had to say anything. But the reality? He doesn't know, not because he doesn't care, but because his brain isn't wired the same way. Men are not naturally attuned to emotional cues. They don't typically notice the unsaid. They don't scan the room for what needs doing. They respond to clear requests, not unspoken expectations. This mismatch often creates a painful loop. The woman waits and hopes he'll notice. He doesn't. She feels unloved and eventually snaps or makes a sarcastic comment. He hears criticism and shuts down. She gets even more resentful. And so it goes round and round in a cycle of unmet needs and defensive withdrawal. But here's the hopeful news. It doesn't have to stay this way. With the right approach, you can flip this dynamic entirely and create a new pattern where asking leads to support, not conflict. Gray lays out the formula. Small, direct, non-demanding, appreciative. Let's explore how this works. Small, start with bite-sized requests. Don't unload your entire mental to-do list in one conversation. Pick one clear, manageable ask like, could you take out the trash tonight? Or would you mind bringing me a cup of tea? Men thrive on clear wins. Each success builds confidence and willingness to help more. Direct, don't hint, sigh, or beat around the bush. Don't hope he'll read your mood or decode your silence. Say what you need in plain terms. Would you help me fold this laundry? Lands far better than, I guess I'll just do it myself again. Clarity builds trust. Non-demanding requests should feel like invitations, not orders. Give your partner the space to say yes, rather than making it feel like an obligation. Men resist pressure, but they respond to freedom. Could you help me with this when you have a minute? Works better than you need to do this right now. Appreciative. This one is critical. When he does follow through, even if the action seems small, acknowledge it. A sincere thank you, that helped a lot, makes him feel seen and valued. Appreciation reinforces giving. It tells him, your effort matters to me. Over time, this creates a powerful loop. He gives, he feels appreciated, he wants to give more. Gray also introduces the concept of follow-up requests. Once a man says yes to one thing, it's the perfect moment to ask for another small favor. Men in motion stay in motion. When they're in the giving mindset and being affirmed for it, they become more available. This doesn't mean piling on tasks. It means building momentum through thoughtful, respectful interaction. Now you might be wondering, shouldn't he already know to help? Shouldn't he take initiative? Shouldn't he notice when I'm drowning? Gray doesn't dismiss this frustration. In fact, he validates it deeply. But he also offers a new perspective. You're not training a man like a child, you're training the relationship. Just as he had to learn how to win your heart at the beginning, he now has the chance to learn how to love you in this season of life. And you get to guide that process, not with resentment but with compassion and clarity. What if asking still feels unfair? What if your inner voice says, why am I always the one managing everything? Gray suggests turning to the love letter technique from the previous chapter. Before making requests, take time to work through your anger, disappointment, or fear. In writing, in journaling, or through open-hearted reflection. That way, you don't bring that charge into your communication. You're not asking from a place of resentment. You're asking from your grounded, connected self. And when you do, everything changes. Support stops being a battlefield. It becomes a bridge. So pause and ask yourself, have you been expecting your partner to read your mind instead of speaking up? When you ask for help, does it sound like a request or a demand? What's one small thing you could ask for today that would bring you closer instead of creating distance? When we shift from silent expectations to clear communication, from criticism to appreciation, from overwhelm to partnership, we don't just get more help. We create a space where love can thrive again. Chapter 13. Keeping the magic of love alive. Ever notice how some couples, even after years, maybe decades, still glance at each other with a spark in their eyes? Not because they had it easy, not because their journey was free of hardship, but because they found a way to preserve the wonder, the tenderness, the emotional aliveness of love. Others, sadly, don't. What began as playful passion slowly fades into routine. The laughter quiets. The fire dims. The connection feels more like cohabiting than true companionship. What separates these two outcomes? John Gray closes: men are from Mars, women are from Venus, with a quiet but powerful truth. Love doesn't typically die in an explosion, it fades in silence. Not from betrayal but from neglect. From small disconnections left unattended. From tiny hurts never spoken. From daily opportunities for closeness missed. The good news? It doesn't have to fade. You don't need fireworks or constant romance to keep love alive. You just need awareness, intention, and a daily willingness to reconnect. Not with grand gestures, but with small choices made again and again to see your partner not as a duty but as a gift. Let's start by returning to where this journey began. The differences. Martians and Venusians. Different planets, different values, different ways of thinking and feeling. The beauty of their connection was rooted in those contrasts. He brought clarity, strength, direction. She brought emotion, connection, empathy. He fixed. She felt. Together, they balanced and complemented each other. But over time, those very differences, once so charming, begin to irritate. If they're misunderstood, they lead to miscommunication. If they're unappreciated, they lead to distance. That's why Gray emphasizes, to keep the magic alive, we must not erase our differences. We must learn to dance with them. So what causes love to erode? It's not the big fights. It's the accumulation of tiny, quiet erosions. Unspoken resentment, the daily decision to withhold affection, the assumption that our partner should just know how we feel. Love begins to fade when we stop speaking the other's emotional language. When we give only when we're getting something back. When affection becomes rare, and appreciation becomes silent. But the magic can return. And more than that, it can deepen. Gray gives us 5 timeless practices to revive and protect love. First, we must keep giving love even when it's not immediately being returned. That's counterintuitive. When we feel our partner has pulled away, our instinct is to wait, to protect ourselves, to see if they'll give first. But Gray invites us to flip that. Give anyway. Freely. In their love language, not yours. Because love creates love. When we give with trust and generosity, it reawakens the desire in our partner to give too. Second, honor the rhythms. Men, remember, are like rubber bands, they pull away so they can return. Women are like waves, rising in emotion, cresting, then falling, only to rise again stronger. These cycles are natural. Don't resist them. Don't panic during the low tide. Trust the movement. Ride it with compassion. Third, keep speaking your truth. Suppressed emotions don't disappear, they fester. Intimacy requires honesty, but not weaponized honesty, compassionate honesty. Think back to chapter 11 in the love letter technique. Let your emotions unfold gently in layers. Say what you feel without blame. Let truth become a bridge, not a bomb. Fourth, celebrate the small stuff. A single flower. A soft thank you. A lingering kiss. A note in a lunch bag. 1 point. 1 point. 1 point. Remember chapter 10. To many women, every small act of love counts equally. Men thrive on knowing they're scoring. And women feel cherished when the emotional tank is filled drop by drop. The small stuff isn't filler. It is the relationship. Fifth, remember that love is a daily choice. Magic doesn't last by default. You don't get to coast. You get to choose over and over again to see your partner with fresh eyes. Ask yourself each morning, how can I show appreciation today? What act of love, however small, can I offer right now? Am I speaking their emotional language, not mine? What's beautiful about this approach is that real love doesn't just survive time. It flourishes through it. In the beginning, love is easy. It's fueled by fantasy. But over time, it becomes richer. Not because it's effortless, but because it's earned. You begin to see your partner clearly, flaws, fears, rhythms, and still choose to love. You don't just fall in love, you build love. You learn to give without controlling, to support without smothering, to let your partner grow even if that means space or struggle. And as you do the work, something beautiful happens. The magic returns. Not as a whirlwind, but as a quiet, steady warmth that fills the space between you. In the final metaphor of the book, Gray returns us to the story of the Martians and Venusians. They've long since landed on Earth, their worlds changed by gravity, stress, and human routines. But they haven't forgotten. They remember their origins, their languages, their customs. And together they make a vow. We will not forget. We will keep learning how to love each other, not by trying to change each other, but by understanding each other. That's the invitation. Not to remake your partner in your image, but to meet them again and again, with empathy, curiosity, and care. So ask yourself, am I giving love in a way that my partner actually receives, or in the way I prefer to give? What simple, consistent gestures have I let slide and could bring back today? What would change if I stopped waiting and started giving again?